Hello, everybody. Welcome to Results Mastery and the Results Mastery podcast. It's great to be here. So, just to let you know, today we're on the podcast as audio. We're going out on YouTube as well. And I've got a very good friend of mine, somebody I've known for many years. He's a very highly respected gentleman in his field. I'll introduce him in just a moment, but I'm really pleased to have him here. So today is all about how to grow a business, how to become more effective. That's something I've been working on now and helping businesses to achieve for just coming up to 30 years. And it's great to be here, and I love the fact that we're now able to push this out over Amazon Music and iTunes and about 40 other different places and get around about 8,000 people watching every single episode. Well, either watching or listening to, mainly listening to, I suppose. But anyway, welcome. Thank you for your time in being here. So, to introduce Mike, my friend, Mike Wilkinson, I'm going to ask him to tell everybody a little bit about him and what he does. So, welcome to the conversation, Mike, and thank you ever so much for your time in being here.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Thank you very much indeed. And just to let everybody know that I'm almost as old as you are. So that means
Surely
that
not.
means
Surely not.
that means I've also been around for not far short of 30 years.
Yes.
And my focus has been absolutely, certainly in the last 20 years, exclusively around the whole area of value and value selling.
The thing is, Mike, that we started very young, didn't we? You know,
That's right. We certainly
about what,
did.
10-ish, something like that when we started.
Nice thought.
Tell people about value selling then and what you do.
Well, I think if I tell in broad terms, I think what I do is that I help businesses to identify and convert more opportunities more profitably by focusing on value and value selling. And in a nutshell, that is what I do. And predominantly, I tend by sort of by accident, really, to be very much involved in the corporate field. So I tend to deal with sales directors and sales teams. But my experience is that all the lessons that they have apply every bit as much to smaller businesses. In fact, some cases, perhaps even more so.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in large corporates and big businesses, sales is incredibly important. But one of the great things about that is that often you've got salespeople who've at least got some level of knowledge and experience. Often in small businesses, you've got people who've got no experience in sales, and they start off in business, and they used to be a whatever it is they were, and now all of a sudden they've got to try selling.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think the one thing that very often business owners particularly bring with them is a lot of passion for what they do.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And and actually, in a bizarre sort of a way, sometimes that passion gets in the way because what you are desperate to talk about is what you can do because you're very proud about it. Your life's work has gone into this,
Sure.
and the assumption is that everybody else is going to be as excited about it as you are.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and
We're not
unfortunately,
always, yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work that way.
No,
It's an interesting point that you make about the fact that in the corporate world, one would assume that there are some, professional salespeople, and there are some professional salespeople, but I unfortunately very often see a sort of sea of mediocrity, and the research certainly backs it up. I was looking at a couple of pieces only this week, and there's a piece of research from McKinsey, and according to them, only 20% of salespeople actually excel at value-based selling,
wow, wow.
which I think is pretty horrifying. And a Forrester survey, and there's two bits from the Forrester one. 88% of buyers think that salespeople don't understand their problems well enough,
Mm, mm.
and I just find
Well,
that absolutely horrendous. And it simply underlines the fact that one of the problems with salespeople is they go in the wrong way. They go in talking about what they can do
Yeah.
rather than going in to try to identify what it is that the customer wants done, what outcome the customer is looking for. So
We've had
they're always
conversations. Yeah.
running around with a solution looking for a problem
Yeah.
rather than
I really
identifying.
like that. Running around with a solution, looking for a problem. That's so true. I know we've had conversations before about people on LinkedIn. You know, you connect to them on LinkedIn, and then 30 seconds later, they're pitching you. Then they have no clue who you are or what you want or what problems you've got. They're just trying to sell you. They're like going, "Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy that? Do you want to buy something else?" And it doesn't work, does it, Mike?
Well, you have to assume it must work
I
every
suppose
now and
so. Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they wouldn't do it.
No.
But I think for
It's almost like
most of the people who are going to be listening to this, my guess is they don't want to be the cheapest provider in their market. They'd like to premium price what they do and get rewarded for the value that they deliver to their customers.
yeah.
And but in saying that, that actually means that not everybody is your customer.
No.
So the starting point is to be clear about who your ideal customer is in the first place.
Well,
Because otherwise you can spend, a lot of time pursuing opportunities that are either simply not going to be worth the while, or that you're not going to be able to win anyway.
wise words, I think. So
But yeah,
just to clarify, Mike, what is value selling? What do you mean by value selling?
just somebody asked me that question a couple of days ago, and I'd actually step back and start by saying we need to understand value.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about value selling, you have to understand what value is in the first place. And there's so much talk around there. My experience is that everybody uses the word, and they use it because they assume everybody understands what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I understand you talking about value, but I don't actually understand what you mean by the value that you are talking about is the reality. And I have a definition of value that came about as a result of a conference I did a long time ago in Copenhagen with a group. And they told me the night before that what they sold was value, to the extent that I thought they'd all been brainwashed because everybody told me they sold value. So the next day I said, look, I'm absolutely blown away. I'm delighted that you sold value, but could you tell me what it is? And I want a dictionary definition of value beginning with the words value is. Well, in short, the answer was no, they couldn't. Or
Right.
at least I had a whole variety of different definitions. There were similarities, but they were all different. And then I came across one definition from one table group that has become my definition of value.
Okay.
And that is value is a mystery. That's my definition of value.
Hey, well,
And I was on a podcast with somebody else earlier on in the week, and he quite rightly pulled me up and he said, hang on a minute, that isn't actually a definition of value, is it? I said, no, but what it does do is it absolutely makes it clear that value is a mystery. And our job as salespeople is to solve that value mystery.
because
Because until we understand how our customers see value,
yeah,
then to all intents and purposes, it is a mystery.
it is. Yeah.
And the whole thing about value is it's in a constant state of change. I mean, even from one day to the next, what I consider to be valuable today, I might not think of as being valuable tomorrow.
Mm,
If I haven't had a glass of water for a week, it's going to be the most valuable thing in the world to me.
yeah.
But if I'm submerged in the stuff, water is not going to be a particular issue for me. And its value and what I'm prepared to pay for it will change consistently.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, really true. So the other thing I know, because obviously we've known each other for quite some time now, and I know you're always talking about discounting and how much you love people to discount. I say that very tongue in cheek. Yeah. So,
I,
I know.
I call it the discount default.
Yeah.
And I think particularly, again, I apologize for any SMEs who are here, but in the conferences I've spoken at with SMEs, they would all admit that unfortunately, one of the first things they do when they're under price pressure is to discount,
Yeah.
because understandably, they're very concerned about losing out on the opportunity.
Yeah.
But there's a great quote from a guy called Seth Godin, which is perhaps the reason that your customers only want to talk about price is that you haven't given them anything else to talk about.
Mm,
And that's the reality.
mm.
Customers aren't, most of us do not buy on the basis that something is cheap. If we did, we'd all be driving around in the worst possible cars, in the cheapest houses, wearing the cheapest clothes. We don't do it.
No.
We look at a balance between the price we're being asked to pay and the value that we think we are getting in return for it.
Mm.
And that's where that personal perception of value comes in. It's what I think is valuable,
Yeah.
because value is defined by your customers, not by you. So
Yes.
when I hear people say, yeah, my customers wouldn't pay that, do you know? Maybe it's because you failed to articulate your value well enough to make them appreciate that what you're asking them to pay is actually really good value.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I totally get that, Mike. I totally agree. It's it's people don't want the cheapest, do they? Why is this such a thing as a Rolex watch? You can get a watch for a tenner down the market.
Which tells the time better.
Yeah, yeah, possibly, yeah, probably. Which will, do exactly the same job for somebody. So why would somebody buy a Rolex and somebody else think that's ridiculous? That's too expensive. I don't want to
It's
pay that.
it's because they are looking at value from their perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm personally not interested in a Rolex, but I've got lots of friends who are, and they love
yeah,
them.
yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. It doesn't have any interest for me at all.
No,
So I wouldn't value one.
no. Do you think it's to do with what you value? And also, Mike, the reason I'm just using a Rolex as an example of a luxury gift, but I might buy a Rolex because I want to feel as though I'm successful. That makes
Yes.
me feel good.
Ah,
Somebody else,
ah.
go on, go on.
What an interesting term you use. I buy a Rolex because it makes me feel. In
Yeah,
other words, you buy a Rolex for emotional reasons rather than necessarily logical reasons.
yeah,
And one of the things about value, to go back to what is that when we'd actually discovered that value is a mystery, and our job as sellers, therefore, is to solve the value mystery, we thought, well, that's it, we cracked it. It's not a problem anymore. But you haven't cracked it, because you need, if you like, to understand what are the constituent elements of value. So, for anybody listening, when you're talking to your clients, your customers, there are really three key drivers that are looking at, particularly in business. One is revenue gain. And the question there is, to what extent can what you do help me to improve my revenue or my performance?
okay,
The next one is cost reduction. And the question there is very similar. To what extent can what you do help me to reduce my costs? Now, both of those are tangible, logical,
yeah,
measurable, monetizable elements of value.
yeah,
And you really should be looking to monetize that, because that starts to become persuasive.
yeah,
The third element of value is the one that you brought up, which is feelings, it's emotion.
feel,
It's
yeah,
the emotional contribution, and that's about trust,
yeah,
credibility, respect, the
mm,
value of your name, the logo that you work under, whatever it might be. But they are not logical. They're intangible. They're subjective, but incredibly powerful.
yeah, yeah. That's why, your Nike trainers are more expensive than the ones that you get that aren't Nike, let's say, that are probably equally as good, but that
Yeah,
logo, that brand gives them the right almost, or the ability to charge 20, 30, 40, 100% more than something
yeah, absolutely
that's
right.
branded.
Yeah. Yeah, it is very odd, and it's simply makes the point about the emotional component of value. And if you think it doesn't apply in business to business, you're
Mm.
absolutely wrong. It applies every bit as much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you're still selling to people, aren't you, Mike?
Yeah.
People say, well, such and such a company has brought my products. No, they haven't. It's the person there. It's the person who
Yeah.
made the decision. So even though it is B2B, it's still business to person, although it's
Yeah.
not.
I make the point. Yeah, absolutely.
You know what
Businesses
I mean?
don't make decisions,
Yeah.
people do.
Will do. Yeah, exactly. So tell me, imagine, right, that I run my own business and I've got a small little, I'm maybe a business owner. I've got three salespeople, or perhaps I'm a medium-sized business and I've got a team of 10, 20 salespeople, or even, a big business and I'm worldwide and I've got a 500 team, sales team. What is it that you could do to help me get better results? Because that's what we're all about, the results mastery, about improving results. What
Yeah, we are.
people?
Yeah, we are. I think there's a whole variety of things, and I think they apply every bit. The scale obviously is different from a one man band. If you've got your own business and you actually have to do your own selling, you still need those same skills that
Yeah,
somebody in a
absolutely.
500-person sales team
Great
has when
testimony.
they go out to see their customers.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the way I look at it, whenever I make a sales call myself, whenever I go to see somebody or speak to somebody on the phone, it's like going for an interview,
yeah.
to a degree. So you need to make sure that you've researched it and you've done all your background stuff. But in terms of helping, I think what I try to set out to do is to simplify the complex and not complicate the
Mm.
simple.
You're one of the.
Selling
I like
is
those.
uh, Selling's about people. It's about the ability to have meaningful conversations with people. And more than anything for me, it's about, if you want to be really good at selling, be curious, be what I describe as constructively nosy,
Okay.
wanting to know more and more about the customer's business. Because if you show real, genuine interest in them, then you will build the sort of relationships and trust that you need to ultimately make the sale. So I
Mm.
have a very structured approach to the sale. There are only 5 steps, and I'll tell you what they are because we're not going to have time to go through them all. But
Oh,
the
thank you.
first step that you have to make, and we touched on it a little bit earlier on, is that you need to assess the opportunity.
Mm.
Not every customer is your customer.
Mm.
There are times when you have to walk away from an opportunity and say it's just not right for us.
Mm.
Either it's going to be too much bloody trouble, because let's face it, we've all had customers who are a complete pain in the ass for
Mhm.
whatever reason it might be, but we
Yeah,
have, haven't we?
yeah.
And they drain you of time and money and all sorts. So assess the opportunity. There's 2 questions you need to answer. Number one, do you want this business? In
Mm.
other words, is it actually attractive? And this is where you need to take a bit of the emotion out of it and be a little bit more objective in looking at the opportunities. Do you want it? And then the second question is, realistically, can you win it?
Yeah.
Because if the answer to either of those is no, what the hell are you doing wasting your time trying to pursue it?
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No.
Because what you want going into your sales funnel, and I don't know whether, as small businesses, you think about it as a funnel, but you're putting opportunities into a sales funnel, people that you want to talk to, and you want quality in that sales pipeline.
Yes.
And then you move into a stage that I call value discovery. And that's about having conversations with your customer to explore what the problems are, the challenges, the issues that they face. Every bit as important of that is, what is the impact on their business if they fail to address those?
Mm.
And again, monetize it. You have to create urgency with the customer to change, to do something. You don't want just a lovely chat. You want them to recognize that they should be actually addressing some of the challenges that they have. So
Yeah.
that's value discovery. I could talk for hours about value
Yeah.
discovery, and if anybody wants to, I'm happy to talk to them about it. Third
Right.
step is value demonstration. Once you've identified what the challenges are, what the impact of those challenges are on the customer's business, what the potential value to them of a solution is, and you have gained their commitment that they agree with that analysis and recognize they should be doing something about it, then you move into value demonstration. And
Yeah.
in that, you take them through. Now, the point I'd make about those two, value discovery is a conversation, not an interrogation. And
Mm.
value demonstration is a conversation, not a presentation.
Okay. Yeah.
So they change a little bit, and who's doing the talking will alter a little bit. But you want to have a conversation with your customer. You don't want to be talking at them.
No.
Then, when you get to the end of value demonstration, when they've absolutely bought into whatever it is you're going to sell, then you have to deliver.
Yeah.
Because up until value delivery, everything is your value promise. Value delivery is when the promise becomes a reality.
Yes.
So you need to have structures in place to make sure that value delivery is good and that you monitor it.
Yeah.
And then the next and final step after that is something that I call value development, which is the sale is unlikely to be a one-off, and you will therefore want to nurture the relationship. You want to network within the customer. You want to look at fresh opportunities, provide insights, whatever else it may be. So just 5 simple steps.
Steps. I like
And
that structure. It sort of builds, doesn't it? In a way, arguably it gets more important. Although I think all those steps are important, but
yeah,
I like the way it builds and you move from one level to the next.
it's a slightly disingenuous saying it's really simple and there are only 5 steps, because under each of the steps there is a lot of separate things
Yeah,
going on.
yeah, yeah.
Do excuse me, I'm slowly woke up with no voice at all this morning.
Well, we both had, there's so much of this around at the moment, isn't there, Mike, with people being
Yeah,
ill and so on. It's just coming up to that Christmas period, I'm sure.
yeah, must be.
Great.
So
So,
yeah, that's it. So 5 steps.
I,
And the other point that I would make about we haven't really touched on pricing too much, but one of the biggest issues I find with pricing is a lack of confidence in communicating it.
mm, mm,
When people say, "Well, what's your price?" I literally I've sat next to people who've apologized
yeah,
and said, well, it's a bit, and that's it. What the hell are you doing?
that's
If
even
you've actually
worse.
communicated your value effectively,
Yeah,
you should be proud of your price. You shouldn't be apologizing for
yeah.
it.
A lot of people say to me, "Oh, if you can send me a quote," I go, "Well, I don't need to do that. I'll just tell you what it is."
Yeah,
I know what it is. I don't need to send them a quote. And then, I'll send them a confirmation afterwards. But yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's even worse in the small business market, the small
yeah,
business
I agree.
who are not salespeople really. They're mechanics or hairdressers or, almost whatever it is they do. And they tend to, I think, sometimes be the worst culprits, A, for the discounting, and B,
Yeah,
for not really having the confidence in the value that they provide, really.
that's it. That's it. I think sometimes they undervalue the
Mm.
value they deliver. But believe me, that is not
They
just
undercharge as well,
just
Mike. I think, they actually, not only do they discount, but even before that, they're not charging as much as they should be charging for what they do anyway. And then they
absolutely
discount it.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. But it's not an exclusively small business problem. I
No,
mean,
no.
I did some work for a telecoms business a few years ago, and they brought me in to talk about value and train their sales team. And we looked at the price they were charging and compared it with the value that they were delivering. And there was no connection between the two things. They were delivering fabulous value. Their customers were saving a bloody fortune, and they were not having any of that reward at all.
Oh, no, no, no. And that's, a really big one, I think. I mean, I talk in the world of marketing about, 3 ways of growing a business. One, getting more customers. two, increasing the average unit of sale, and three, the frequency of repurchase. And one great way of increasing the average unit of sale is put your prices up. What would happen? Half the time price is irrelevant, isn't it? If I want a new car, yeah, I've got a guideline, somewhere between this and that, but when especially when I'm buying something like, I don't know, a TV or something like that, I can buy a TV for probably about £150 up to about well, heaven knows, but certainly typically easily pay £3,000-4,000 for one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
in reality, I'm probably going to go somewhere down the middle at a, £1,000 or whatever type TV.
That's because you're rich, Steve.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that, but
A rich Yorkshireman. But you are right about the revenue thing. But perversely, some people will actually reduce their prices because they think they're going to improve their revenue by selling more. And
yeah,
that's the pursuit of fool's gold, as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. It all almost, when you speak to people, it almost doesn't matter what you charge. And yet when salespeople talk about selling, it's always about, well, it's all about price. It's not necessarily, is it?
It's yeah, you make an interesting point. But I do often find if you've talked to a salesperson who's lost a deal,
Yeah,
and you say, why did we lose that deal? I can
because
guarantee in most cases they'll say, well, we couldn't meet the price. We
yeah,
were too expensive.
yeah,
If only we dropped the price 5%. I told you we didn't need to discount too much. We could have won that business. I
yeah.
don't think I've ever heard a salesperson say the reason we lost that business is because I failed to communicate our value as effectively as I should.
No, no,
That is the reason why you lost the business.
yeah, yeah. Which shows how incredibly important it is. So
Yeah.
when people recognize, or if people are sort of sat here listening to this and think, do you know what? I really ought to do something about this. What could you do to help? And what should more importantly, what should they do now to get in touch with you and perhaps have that value conversation?
Well, the easiest way is to just drop me an email, MW Mike Whiskey at axiavalue.com. If they go to the website, which is www.axiavalue.com, there's a link there to book a meeting straight away. In terms of what I can do, I do three or four key things. I've got a program that I run with people. I've got a video package which takes people through the whole of the program. I have a group coaching session called the 12% Club. I've
Yes.
got
Yeah.
I've got to tell you why it's called the 12% Club. You may remember that earlier on I said that 88% of buyers feel that sellers don't understand what they're doing and all the rest of it. There was a verbatim quote in a Forrester report some years ago, and it was from a senior buyer, and he said only 12% of the meetings I have with salespeople has any value.
Right.
Now,
Wow.
I don't know about you. I think that is absolutely horrifying. And
Horrific.
I thought there and then I would hate any of the people who've been on any of my programs to be in that 88% of
Yeah.
pointless meetings.
Yeah.
So I want them to be in the 12%. So that's how the 12% club
I
came.
like that.
But,
Get into that.
but also, if there are any sales directors or any business owners, I also do a one-to-one coaching around value and value selling, helping people look at individual deals, individual opportunities. So lots to go at.
Lots to go at. Lots of help there. That's great because that's what people need. We need in 2025 to become better at selling. The world's changing. We know that. We've got AI everywhere. We've got changes to technology and so on. And then we've got everything else that's happening in the world for change. So, I've always believed that if you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always got. And try saying that when you've had a few. But I do believe that. And I believe that, if we're going to raise our game and do better, then, we must change. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that said, thank you ever so much, Mike, for being here. I really appreciate it. Great interview as ever. Thank you, everybody else, for listening. It's good to have you here. On behalf of Mike and I no doubt we would love to wish you a very happy Christmas. If you want to know
Certainly would.
more from me, go to results-mastery.com and keep listening to this podcast. Every week, I'm going to be producing some really interesting stuff, either on my own or with people like Mike, who I know you want to listen to. So thank you very
Let's
much.
be honest, Steve. It delivers great value.
Absolutely great value. That's what it's all about. Thank you very much, Mike.